Hey guys, welcome back. Right now we have completed the Joker build. It is all buttoned up and ready to do the final testing before we get it out to shipping. Right now we're running Prime 95 and we are stress testing the CPU. I'm going to go ahead in here and I'm going to show you. We are running at roughly 4.9 gigs and there's our temperatures. Water cooling's working well. You might be able to hear it. We've got it set on silent mode, but it does come up, you know, once we have 100% load. So that's what we got going on right now. Here's a look at the build. Sorry for the lighting, it's not very good. Well, I hope the lighting inside the computer is good, but I mean the lighting on the with the camera doesn't show up really well. Just so you guys know, in real life there's not a lot of glare there, and the lighting is very soft. It doesn't really illuminate or radiate the heat. What it does is, or I'm sorry, the light, not the heat. What it does is just the components. It's a very soft light. So in real life, these components are really nice, and I think you would like them. It doesn't actually look like that, but you can see the coloration there. So we've got all that. One other thing I wanted to show you, we're going to come around over here. So for those of you who are interested in getting the NZXT Krakens, in order to run all of your software and everything, and your pump control and fan control and coloration, you have to have a USB 2.0 internal port on the motherboard. Well, most modern motherboards actually are now being produced without them, so we had to do a little bit of modification, and I'll show you that right now. So what I did was a little bit of case modification, and here on the back we have a USB adapter with a 90-degree going back into the motherboard, zip tied and secured in place. Up here inside I actually had to cut in order to run that through. So for you guys who get that and are confounded by what to do because you're lacking the proper port inside the computer, that is something that you can do to get it to work. Alright, so that's a look at that. We're going to go ahead and stop our Prime 95 now. And just so you know, there's no magical wizardry or anything. Of course, anybody who's seen my video editing skills knows that there's no magical wizardry. We are going to go ahead and run the good old 3D Mark. And I'm going to leave the camera running. I'll probably forward through it pretty quickly so that you don't have to watch the whole thing. But we're going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to go ahead and run the regular Firestrike, which is for high performance gaming PCs. I have actually run it through Firestrike Ultra, and it's not bad, but you know, this isn't really made for 4K, you know, at maximum frame rates, but it does perform well. Just so you guys know, we are running hopefully at 1440p. This is a 1440p Asus monitor, runs at 75 Hertz. Highly recommended if you guys are looking for a 1440p monitor. Oftentimes you can find it on sale for a decent price. Alright, well, I'm going to let this run. Alright, and that was our demo, and now we're going to go into the benchmark, and this will be our first graphics test. And at the end of this, I'll also show you guys the temperatures and stuff like that, just so you know the computer's very, very quiet right now. The creaking is me in a chair, not any parts of the computer. Alright, graphics test number 2. I'm going to see if I can bring it in here and get it focused a little bit. I don't think you're going to be able to see what the actual score is, or the frames per second. So down there in that little white bar, it's actually showing the frames per second. Right now we're running at a steady 70. Now it's going up because obviously the scenery is closing in, so there's less things to render, but I'll show you the scores at the end. Hopefully you'll be able to see those alright. But what I'm sure you can see on the camera at least is how smooth it's running. Alright, now we have a physics test, which is going to test the CPU. This is pretty brutal on the CPU. Right now we're running at 34 frames, and you can hear the fans just kicked on, probably if I shut my big mouth. So that's our fans on the radiator now kicking in because the CPU is being taxed pretty heavily. Just so you guys are also aware, during none of these graphics tests, in fact, not during any test I've run whatsoever, have I ever been able to hear the graphics card. It stays that cool. And right now we're running at 32 to 35 frames per second. Now we're up to 40. But you can see it's actually very smooth on screen. Alright, there we go. We now have our results. And we have a Firestrike score of 14,487. And that is a valid score, as you can see right there. Graphics score 17,902. Graphics test 1, 84 frames per second average. Graphics test 2, 72 frames per second. Physics test and physics score was 10K, 10.6K, and the frames per second was 33.80. Now remember, we are running at 4.9 gigahertz. Combined score 7,667. Alright, and now I'm going to go down and try to get you some temperatures. There you can see all the GPU loads and everything, frames per second. Here is temperatures. So GPU temperature actually stayed, it's the blue line, the one that's along the bottom, and is very steady. Our maximum temperature on the GPU was 54 degrees Celsius, and that was in, I believe, graphics test 1. And CPU temperature looks like the highest we ever got was about 68 degrees, and that was probably during the pure physics test or at some point when it was taxing. You can see it goes up and down really fast, so every time it changes with a lot of calculations, it goes up and down pretty quickly. GPU steady as can be, and remember that is the Asus GTX 1070. Alright, that is that. I will probably do a few more little benchmarks for comparison for people who are wondering. I am going to show some frame rates in some Blizzard games, because that is primarily what this build is made to do and do well. Alright guys, I'll see you back for those.